Hey everyone, this is science fiction and fantasy author Lindsay Buroker, and I'm here today with my beta readers and good friends, Rue, Cindy, and Sarah. We'll keep it on a first name basis. Although your names are in the intros of the book, so I guess if people really want to stalk you, they can give it a shot. But we thought it might be interesting to you guys to kind of hear about the beta reading process, how they became beta readers, how we all met, and that sort of thing, and also you guys gave me a bunch of questions on Facebook, so I will be answering them questions from you. But before we jump into that, why don't you guys tell us a bit about yourselves? I'll have Cindy go first since Zoom, your face is big on my Zoom.
Okay. All right. See, my day job is I'm a database architect, so very detail-oriented kind of day job, and just always read as an escape, as a de-stressor. So just kind of using different parts of my brain than my day job. But the detail orientation does come in handy with the beta reading. We can talk about that later.
You are the person most likely to notice when my characters that are in 0G are like, and in space, are scratching their noses while in full combat armor and helmets.
Yes.
All right, Rude, tell us about yourself.
I'm Rue. I'm the odd one out in that. Well, no, I guess Cindy's job isn't very writing intensive either sometimes. So I'm a public health worker for the city of New York with a background in emergency medicine, and I kind of got here because my husband was a huge fan of Lindsay's writing, and one day I looked it up and read the entire first series in 2 weeks, and somehow ended up on somebody's Twitter feed and got adopted by these guys. So I'm the late edition, but not at this point. That lateness has been, it's been like 7 years.
So late. All right, Sarah.
All right. So I live on a farm, and I grew up on a farm, and I work on a farm, and but I majored in English literature in college, and writing and words have always been something I really loved, and I've been a voracious reader my entire life. So being able to work with Lindsay and explore that profound love that I have for words has been very rewarding.
Right, and we should mention you're actually an editor, kind of part-time, I guess, part-ish time. So you're the only one that is actually, because there was a question, I'm not sure we got it in here, but if you guys are all full-time beta readers and get 401ks and
I have beta read for other, I do beta read for a couple of other people, but not at Sarah's level, because I'm doing like science specific stuff.
Yeah, I've done it for a couple other authors as well, but just infrequently. None of them are nearly as prolific as Lindsay. So it's something I definitely enjoy doing, but yeah, I don't do that as a full-time job.
The pay for your regular job is definitely better.
It is. It is. Most tech workers can probably say the same.
All right, so next question, I'll have Sarah go first. I know the story, but I'm curious from you guys' point of view, how you found my work and how we kind of got to know each other online first, and we now have all met in person and hung out.
Okay, so in like 2006, 2007, I got a Kindle for Christmas, and it was like the best gift ever because suddenly I could have hundreds of books at my fingertips all the time. So I was cruising through Amazon's free books, and I found the first Emperor's Edge book, and I read that like in under 24 hours. And then I read the next two. I think those are the ones that were published then. And I ran out of books to read by Lindsay. So I went online and I was searching for fan fiction. And I stumbled across a website that Mana, hi Mana, had made to connect fans of Lindsay's. And then there was a chat, like a web chat, old school, on Mana's website. And we all started hanging out together online. And then Lindsay asked us to beta read Dragonblood, and it's been history since then, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I had originally found my first beta readers through writing workshop, and we were like a good match, but I was writing so much faster and than they were writing. Like we would trade manuscripts back and forth. I would beta read for them and they would beta read for me. And I was feeling super guilty because they'd write like one or two a year like normal people. And here I am with my, I wasn't writing quite as fast then, but it was pretty prolific. So yeah, it was great when I found you guys. Cindy, do you want to answer the question next?
I have a similar answer to Sarah. My sister actually read The Emperor's Edge and recommended it to me. I had seen it in the also bought, I think, on Amazon a couple of times, and I'd read the blurb. And I thought it sounded kind of interesting, but it wasn't what I was looking for at whatever moment that was. But then my sister said, hey, you got to read this. So put it on my Kindle. And just like Sarah, I think I read through all the ones that you had written at that point, and then kind of went online looking for anything else. And I think at the time my husband was actually deployed to Afghanistan. So, and I had two small children. So I was pretty much tethered to the house and, looking for something to do in the evenings once I finally got them to bed. So I ended up finding, like Sarah described, the Emperor's Edge forum that Manna made in the chat room. And was like, oh, people with my similar interests, and I don't have to leave the house. This is convenient. So we just started hanging out, and then I think we actually typo hunted maybe the last couple Emperor's Edge books. I think Forged in Blood, we had been hanging out in the chat room, and before you published it, you handed it around, and we did a typo hunt on that one. So we got an early copy of that. It was very thrilling. And I guess we must not have sucked at it too badly because you asked us to do it again. So yeah. And then for Dragon Blood, like Sarah mentioned, when we actually started really beta reading for you, you and I had gone to Telluride for a week or a long weekend or something. And then that's when you actually wrote that book, I think, in the car on the way home, right? Because I remember that airport in Telluride was how you described the airstrip in Dragon Blood. And it's terrifying if you want to go Google a picture of that airport. It's like right on the edge of a cliff. And so clearly it was inspiring to you after we had that little ski trip fun. And then, yeah, once you finish writing it, then I know you sent it to me. It must be Sarah too. Yeah, I guess the rest is history. We must not have sucked, so you kept us.
That series totally was born there. I couldn't sleep one night and I was reading Linnea Sinclair's Accidental Goddess, like a reread, and that's one of my favorite sci-fi romances and was the inspiration for that story. I just did a fantasy version of it, but yeah, we didn't land at that airport. We both drive. You were in
thank goodness.
Yeah, you were in Colorado at the time and I was in Arizona, so we drove. But I remember seeing it from the ski lift and be like, no way, that's like a cliff. Do planes land on there?
Yeah, I was very glad I drove and did not have to experience that firsthand.
All right.
But we had other adventures there that ended up in a book too, because we went to that hot springs that ended up being a clothing optional experience. We opted into clothing, but other people did not, and so that was, I think we bonded over that.
We bonded over the fact that it's always the people you don't want to see opt out of clothing that do it. And then the hot people are like in their swimming suits.
We're over there just like maintaining eye contact.
Right, do not look.
Had clothes on.
At the family over there that's enjoying this together with their small daughter.
Yes.
Anyway, Rue, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, so I have a similar story in terms of a recommendation, though my timing was a little different. My husband, I think, had the same experience with the Kindle free books, and he had been following Emperor's Edge pretty much from the beginning and kept recommending it to me, but doing a really horrible job of it. He would say that it sounded like all sorts of, like, it encompassed all these plot elements that were things I didn't like and stuff that I'm not interested in. And then someone else managed to summarize it completely differently. And I'm like, oh, this is a heist story? Why didn't you tell me that? I can read that. And the timing was the timing was really fortunate for me, but in an unfortunate fashion, my father had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer right around when that happened, which was right when Republic came out. And I read everything Lindsay had written in a week. And Blade's Edge had just come out. I didn't come in as a beta reader until I think the third or fourth, it was the fourth book. I'd been typo hunting, and that started because I tweeted something and a couple of people from the chat saw me on Twitter and invited me to the chat, and I got brave enough to come in and then got absorbed into the group. I guess everybody liked me okay. And I got added as a beta reader because Lindsay had to do a substantial rewrite and wanted another set of eyes. And I'd been basically, the couple of times that I typo hunt, I was fixing continuity errors. So I guess I accidentally gave myself more of a job. Can I recommend now that anyone who watches this who typo hunts, please don't do that. It was not a good thing for me to do. It was kind of rude, and I shouldn't have done it, but now there's 3 of us. Hopefully there aren't any continuity issues to get found later, but I was only expecting to do the 1 book and have been pleased to be included ever since.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I mean, I don't know how other authors feel, but I don't really want a stranger to like come in and offer feedback.
Yeah,
It's like, as an
we
introvert.
had met at that point. Yeah,
And
you had met me at least at that point because you were in New York for like a day. And I got to be around for the writing of the first Fallen Empire book when we traveled together. So you need to go somewhere with Sarah and start a series now.
well, there was Agents of the Crown, but I will
Oh,
point
well,
out,
yeah, I was there too, and that was our fault, I guess.
I will point out that the chat room, sadly, and forum no longer exist. It seems like everything's gone onto Facebook, and I'm honestly not that big into Facebook other than posting on the author page. I do miss it. Like, it's a good way to kind of meet people. I don't even remember how I found it. Manna must have emailed me and said, hey, and I popped in a little bit, and I didn't want to read like the fan fiction and stuff, but I jumped into the chat room every evening for a while there. So let me ask the next question. We'll start with Rue this time. What are some of your favorite books, not mine, and genres and tropes that you enjoy when you're reading?
It's always interesting to start with me on this question because I'm the one who doesn't fit in with the group here. I love mysteries and thrillers and medical science nerdy themed things, though I also have a soft spot for bodyguard romances, which I think that's the one where I overlap with the rest of the group a little more. I tend to be into much more, I'm into mysteries and heist stories and lighthearted comedy that gets mixed with serious dark things. So I read a lot more contemporary thriller kind of stuff most of the time.
Awesome. And I guess, Cindy, I'm just going back and forth on
Yeah.
the top to try to make it even or whatever.
I don't know. I go through phases. When I was a lot younger, I read a lot of literature. I didn't major in it in college like Sarah did, but I have a pretty extensive, I don't know, list of books that I've read just in the literature category. And then I moved on to mysteries, and then started reading fantasy, and then I don't know, romance and a little bit of sci-fi, but I find my tastes are pretty particular with that. I read Lindsay sci-fi and not a whole lot else. So yeah, I just kind of bounce around a little bit depending on my mood. Urban fantasy, romance, fantasy, sci-fi, and yeah.
All right, Sarah.
All right. I have to admit that for most of my life, I've read basically anything I can get my hands on. I read Gulf Digest a lot when I was younger because it was always there because my dad subscribed to it. So I want to say there are no genres that I won't read. But since I've started working more with editing and beta reading and doing that professionally, I haven't had time to read as broadly as I used to. So right now I read a lot of romance subgenres because they're easy to digest, and there's always a happy ending, which I find a very large stress relief. So right now I've been reading a lot of historical and fantasy romance, and my favorite authors are probably Sharon Shin, and I'm reading a new to me author right now. I think her name is Tilly Willis, something like that. But she writes about werewolves in Regency England and the Napoleonic Wars, and it's really entertaining. So I recommend those books if you can figure out what her name is.
I have the sample for that, and it's next on my list because I remember you linked it quite favorably. I allow me to give a shout out to one of my favorite authors, Camilla Monk, who is probably going to be watching this. We see you because it was on a cruise with these guys that our friend Catherine introduced me to her book, and that's a really good example of a thriller heist comedy romance. Great blend. She's a big fan of The Emperor's Edge, so.
Cool. Well, yeah, I need to check these out too. I know I've got Sarah's werewolves on my thing. The thing is that, like Sarah mentioned, once you start editing or writing full time or a lot, it really cuts into what used to be reading time. So I almost exclusively do audiobooks now. And sadly, right now I'm listening to my own audiobooks because after you write so much, it's like you have to reread or re-listen to everything before you write a new book in the series so you can remember what's going on. So I need a vacation, guys, where I actually read other people's books.
I think Sarah and I are both like, also, it's traveling with you guys that I get my most reading done. And I feel like that's at least the two of us, and possibly everyone feel that way. It's, you need to go on another reading vacation.
I know. I read those Lunar Chronicles books. Who's the author? Stephanie Meyer? The last time we were on a cruise.
Marissa Meyer.
Marissa Meyer, yes.
Yes, I remember recommending those. So.
All right, well, let's jump into listener, or I guess the reader questions from Facebook. Bud asks, would you spend a little time describing the duties and responsibilities of a beta reader? I am very curious. And we'll make Cindy go first this time. Cindy in the middle.
Okay. First, I would say that it's good to start out by being clear with the author what their expectations are for beta reading, because you don't want to be too harsh on something that they don't really care about. And you also want to get an idea for what kind of scope they're willing to, redo or retool, because you don't want to suggest major edits if that's not really in the cards for this sort of thing. So I think setting expectations is important if it's somebody you haven't really worked with before. So like, I don't rearrange commas, I don't go down to that level. The editor can do that. And unless it changes the meaning of it, I pretty much leave that alone. I do correct typos as I go along if I see them, because the more eyes on that, the better, because things can slip through it. They get by all of us, and then sometimes the editor too. And that's why Lindsay also has other typo hunters that still find plenty of things. So I do typos. Most of the stuff that like commas and word usage and stuff, it just depends. If it's something subjective, I usually leave it. But then I'm always looking for continuity issues and just logic issues. Does this make sense? And a little bit of like, is this person's actions consistent with what I think the character would do? And that's more as the series goes on. Sometimes that pops up. Let's see. Definitely looking for things like Lindsay said with the helmet. If the person has the helmet on, they should not be sticking something in their mouth. I remember that was one thing I caught in Republic way back at the beginning that made me laugh really hard. That was in I don't know, that might even have just been in the typo hunting stage, but you got to fix that. I remember Maliki was trying to open a jar with her teeth when she was in a full diving helmet. And we have never let Lindsay forget that. So things like that, sound in when there's no atmosphere, or just little things like that as she's writing along, it's easy to forget what the situation is. So yeah, trying to catch those things. And then all three of us have kind of a set of special knowledge that not everybody has. And so like I do some computer stuff, but also my husband's in naval aviation. And so just by proximity, I know some stuff about the Navy and ships and airplanes and there's definitely been some times where I'm like, okay, Lindsay, an airplane can't do that. That's not going to happen. And you get artistic license, but you don't want it to be something that's going to pull people out of the story where it's just not realistic enough. And so I have my in-house specialist that I can refer to if I have a question about would this actually work.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things. Like people ask to beta read, and like I said, I'm kind of uncomfortable with it when I don't know the person at all. So there's that. But also, it's like at this point I've got kind of these three niches filled. The one thing I would love to have, if anybody's listening, is a rocket scientist. So if you work at SpaceX and you also read my books, let me know. But yeah, Rue really helps with the medical stuff, Cindy computer, airplanes, and Sarah, I still remember you leaving me this long, huge comment in the margins of, I think it was the second Dragon Blood. They were in a cattle
With the
car.
cow, yes.
And the
yes.
heroes jumped up, actually it might have been like before, whatever. But anyway, the heroes jump out and leave the cattle car door open. And you were like, oh my gosh, no, you cannot, all these cows are going to jump up and break their legs. I was like, they will now close the door before they leave the thing. But in addition to the editing, you've got all the farm background and cattle experience.
If my friend who works for NASA, who has threatened repeatedly to read Lindsay's sci-fi, is paying attention, that might be you, the magical fourth person. I'm not saying your name, but I know you're thinking about it.
Once you get brought into the group, we all go on cruises together. So there's a perk. I guess I kind of interrupted there. Rue, did you want to ask or answer the question about describing the duties and responsibilities of a beta reader?
Yeah, so I can definitely say that, I mean, I've been doing that. My kind of little area of expertise is all the things related to science, and Cindy had a good point about learning about what's desired, because back in the beginning I used to notice things that were just chemistry doesn't work that way, and pharmacology, which is an area specific interest of mine, I would say, well, this is impossible. This whole plot point is like all of this needs to be rewritten, and I'm not a fantasy reader. So I have now learned that it's, no, now you just need to add a sentence about how magic makes all of this work so that no one gets bothered by it being chemically impossible and you don't have to completely change your plot. Other than that,
works with aviation too, yes.
Yeah, it just
add magic and
magic.
Yep,
magic fixes everything. Saves having to do substantial rewrites. I remember feeling really guilty, and then it turned out that that problem was fixed in a sentence. But I read very, very fast, but I have to read everything twice because the first time I read something, I don't notice errors except for the occasional typo. But if I read the book fast and then read it a second time more slowly, I get pretty good at noticing continuity problems. So that's my main thing, is I'll read it once quickly to get the story down and then read it again, have to sleep on it, notice some plot stuff if there is anything that doesn't quite seem right. We had the most recent book I beta read, I had a dream about a plot error, little plot continuity thing, and woke up like, I wonder if that's a problem or not. And I kind of worked it out with myself and then talked to all three of these guys about it in our chat. And I think that it ended up being something that needed a tiny fix. Other than that, I do big side comments a lot, but I also try to give positive feedback amongst the corrections and comments in the Word document. I tend to be really big on highlighting sentences that I liked and things that made me laugh. And this comes from how Lindsay had enjoyed reading my little Goodreads comments on the status updates on her books before I had been beta reading. So now I just tend to put that in the Word document, and I have this thing in part because I do a lot of grant proposals in my day job, that I try to also highlight things that were specifically good, because getting millions of pages of corrections can be kind of a huge bummer.
It's a good point. I try to do that as well, especially point out the parts that make me laugh so that she knows the joke landed. Or if it was unintentionally funny, you know.
Yes, you're much better at catching sexual innuendos inadvertently put in the books than I am. I'm like,
yeah, I'm not good at
what?
that either. No, that goes right over my. Sometimes I don't get the sex joke when I'm supposed to, but we know that's a me problem and not a book problem.
I do sometimes have to refer Lindsay to Urban Dictionary to check something out so that she knows there's a double meaning there that she may not have intended.
There are a lot of words in the English dictionary that have double meanings, as I've found. But yeah, no, it's great to get some positive feedback too, because you might think like if you ever get a chance to beta read for an author who has a ton of books out and they're like really popularity, you probably think, oh, they're totally, they know they're cool, they know their stuff is good, they don't need that. But really, we are all very fragile and sensitive, and like I don't read reviews just because I can't handle it. Even though a lot are good, the ones that are not will like derail you and kind of put you in a funk for the day. So that's appreciated. And Sarah, you haven't answered this one yet. Let me remind you. Could you spend a little time describing the duties and responsibilities of a beta reader?
All right, so my two partners here have already described most of what goes into beta reading, but I think of it as a chance to make sure that everything in the book hangs together cohesively. So like when you're writing a character arc, it has the same sort of shape as a general plot. It needs to peak, it needs to have a resolution. And if you don't have the stuff at the beginning of the arc to make sure that the peak and the resolution is satisfying, then sometimes an author needs to go back and add stuff at the beginning to make the whole trajectory of the story satisfying. So a beta reader has the opportunity to make suggestions to make the entire story satisfying and make sure all the pieces that need to come before the end are in place before the book is published.
For those who are curious too, I should say, I write the rough draft all in one swoop, then I do one editing pass, and then I send it off to these guys. So they're kind of like developmental editors is sort of the role they fill. But if you're paying for all your own editing, it's really expensive to pay a developmental editor, and then go into copy editing and then having somebody proofread the final stuff. So it's good if you can like do a writing workshop or find good beta readers like these guys that will kind of fill that role. And Sarah, do you want to start off with the next question, which is from Kathy? What made you want to do beta reading? And do you beta read for other authors as well? I guess we kind of already answered that part, but what made you want to do it?
Well, we were friends first, I think, and you asked. And so since you were my friend, I wanted to help you. But I also have, taken lots of creative writing classes since high school. And I do really love writing and helping people. So getting to put those two together was very rewarding. Like I never thought I'd get to use the things I learned in college in real life. And beta reading for Lindsay and also the other people I do editing and beta reading for, let me put to use all that information I paid lots and lots of money to learn.
Awesome. Cindy?
Well, I think first it was a chance to get the books early and read them before anybody else, which is a perk. But it's also a chance to fix things that you can't otherwise fix. I mean, if you're just reading a book published, by some author you don't even know, you don't get to fix any of the mistakes that make it through. And so it's a little bit satisfying to be able to catch those before they actually get put out into the world. So that's definitely a piece of it. Just like I said, my detail orientation wants to fix things. And so that's part of it. And also it's just using a different part of my brain, like Sarah said, a different part of my education than I use in my day job. So I think it's satisfying in that way too, to be able to help make something better and just skills that I don't get to use in my day job. And I do, I think I already said, I do beta read a little bit for other people, but not as much.
I'm never sure how much of a treat it is to read the books at this stage. Like I feel like the typo hunters get the best of both worlds because it's basically edited and clean at that point, except for a few things. But yeah, I'm not going to be changing major plot
Lindsay,
elements.
They're always enjoyable. They're never not enjoyable. Even when we send you like giant heaps of feedback and tell you to change the entire novel, though maybe that's just me who does that consistently. But they're always a good time. So I don't want you to think that we feel oppressed by the work you give us.
I'm glad I'm not oppressing you all.
No, even when like the end is completely, there is at least one book where the entire second half was different from how I read it at first. Still good. We got the alternate universe version.
Well, that's kind of the one I just edited. I've changed quite a bit, so it'll be a surprise.
Not that one. All that was kind of on us, but that's not the one I was thinking of. So
No, there have been a
we'll
couple
have
where
another alternate universe edition.
Yeah. Rue, did you want to answer the question? Do you remember the question? Do I remember the question?
I think I remember the question.
What made you want to do beta reading?
So I was pretty good friends with all three of you at the point when I got asked, and I got excited to feel included. Was a big thing. I was like, oh, I get to help people who I am already talking to all the time, and part of the group, and that was probably the biggest thing for me. But the way that I've really enjoyed staying with it is that I have moved out of clinical emergency medicine and into a supervisory role where I'm editing people's grant proposals all the time, and it's just nice to look at something that's not that and continue to use writing in a way that isn't, and writing skills in a way that isn't remarkably dry and boring.
There's probably more P jokes in mine than in the average
Yeah,
proposal.
usually, well, the first drafts of grant proposals, we tend to be pretty punchy when we're writing them, but we have to take all the fun stuff out. Sometimes I keep the original versions.
All right, Rue, I will ask you Melissa's question first. What series would you pick to have Lindsay write more of?
All of them. I got my wish because I would have picked Star Kingdom. So I managed to we got another book out of her for that. And if I have to pick a second one, I would go with Death Before Dragons.
All right, well, there should be some more coming from those. Cindy?
That's hard to pick because they all have their charms, and for the series that you've completed, I mean, you've taken the story arc all the way through, and I don't know, but I could always go back to the Emperor's Edge world, maybe have some new adventures with some new characters, because I like all the world building that you did there, and I like checking in on pre-existing characters and seeing what they're doing, maybe incidental to the new story. I think that would be fun. But like Ruth said, any of them would be fun.
Well, someday I still have to finish off Basilard's story. It is hard when you finish something off I feel it's pretty complete, pretty good, to then go back to the same characters. You kind of have to wreck their life a little bit in order for there to be conflict. And it's sort of like, well, will people even want that? Will it be as good? Especially if like the last one you feel was like a good solid ending to the series. So always the challenges. All right, Sarah, which series would you like to see more of?
I'm always happy to read anything you write. Like, I wouldn't object to any new thing that you create because you have so many interests, and I think a similar philosophy to life, maybe. But I would love more Ruby books. Lindsay's alter ego, which is much naughtier than the Lindsay Buroker books. But I do find the romance genre pretty just satisfying to read.
Yes, Ruby Lions Drake, if anybody hasn't read those, sci-fi romance. More sexy times on page. All right, next question is a quickie from Sam, who is giving me quite the compliment here. On average, when working on Lindsay's books, what percentage of time do you spend cracking up too much to work? I feel like this probably isn't a problem, but maybe Sarah, go ahead.
Not too much, because there is like plot between the jokes, which is a good thing in a novel. But I do leave, comments on things that make me laugh, and just like an LOL, or just that I thought it was hilarious. So some of the time, but not all of the time.
All right, Cindy, I feel like Cindy more likely is going to crack herself up by coming up with the sex version or a pun that I inadvertently put in there.
I did go back and look at old comments on manuscripts before this, and yes, did end up laughing at some of the things I wrote. But I have almost fallen off my elliptical machine before because of one of Lindsay's typos. I read as I work out a lot, and I'll just be highlighting stuff in my Kindle and then typing up notes later. But I don't remember which typo it was in particular, but I started laughing and it broke my stride, and I literally almost fell off the machine. So it has been disruptive before.
More so my typos and inadvertent mistakes than the intended humor.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I had an intended humor one at least. Unfortunately, I don't remember what it was, but I always have a can of ginger ale with me. Always, not always a Verner's, but if it's a good day, it's Verner's. And there was one joke made me drop my drink from laughing, and I dropped it on the keyboard of my laptop, and it actually gave the computer water damage, and I had to give it 24 hours to dry sitting upside down on a drying rack. So it literally made it so that I had to stop working on everything for an entire day.
That is unfortunate. Hopefully it survived being dried out.
Yeah, it did. It was fine. It was just, it got kind of wet and needed some time to dry off. But yeah, it just couldn't do anything because I had laughed hard enough to drop my drink and spill it on my computer.
All right. Well, next question from Angela. I think this is also going to be no, is my guess, but have you ever needed to request more toilet humor, or was it always on point? Go ahead, Rue.
I feel like there was one time that I requested specifically an expansion because it was during a surgical scene, and I didn't think that there were enough mentions or any mentions of the fact that people who are having surgery cannot control their bladders. Probably wanted to do something about that, but otherwise on point.
All right, Cindy.
I think I rarely have to ask for more of that. In fact, I remember your first Ruby book, where it was in the opening pages of the book, there was already some toilet humor in there. And I told you were going to blow your cover right away. Everybody's going to figure out that that was your pen name because you kind of started right in on it at the very beginning.
To be fair, they were climbing down the latrine shaft of an archaeological dig site. So how are you not going to have toilet humor while you're hanging in a latrine shaft?
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that.
Sarah?
I don't think I've ever requested more pee jokes or any sort of toilet jokes. I was editing an extra for Lindsay's blog recently, and I added a snot joke at Lindsay's request. I don't know if Rue mentioned that the infection caused bright green mucus.
Yes.
So I added a line.
Yeah, as soon as I saw Pseudomonas, I'm just like, okay, it's the bright green pathogen, and the fact that it's green hasn't come up, which is kind of depressing. They fixed it for me.
I think I looked that up, and maybe Wikipedia didn't mention the bright green snot or whatever.
Disappointing, Wikipedia. It's really green. It's unmistakable. Super green.
All right, next question. Vin says, I'd like to know what feedback I think you guys, felt was most helpful and useful to me, author. Cindy, you want to try to tackle that one? I hope I got it right there.
Well, when you're trying to come up with titles, I feel like we're super helpful coming up with all of the punny titles suggestions that we can possibly think of, or accidentally suggesting the name of a pre-existing work just because it fits. Okay, we are actually not helpful at all with title suggestions. In fact, Lindsay will run the other direction if we start suggesting them, I think. But I don't know. I'd like to think.
I have taken a couple. You've given me some serious ones, and
That's true.
I was about to say, I think one got used.
Every once in a while, we come up with something brilliant, but most of the time it's just making jokes that aren't probably helpful. But I don't know if I can evaluate myself and say what I'm most helpful with, but I don't know. I think I catch things that maybe would slip through otherwise just by stepping through the logic of the situation. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. I feel like I probably would have to answer that, but it's hard. There have been so many times at this point for me to even think like, which book did you say what? A lot of times when you're working with beta readers, it's less like you're not necessarily going to do everything they say. You might agree, you might not agree. So usually it's sort of like with 3 people, like if everybody says something, then I kind of know, all right, I probably have to address this in some way. But if one person says something and one person says something else, it depends if it also clicks with me. And so it's good to have either like that confirmation, like yes, or just sometimes I completely miss things often. So it's good to have you guys. Sarah, go ahead. What was the question again? What feedback do you feel was most helpful? Clearly the cattle car scene.
Yes. And I also leave many comments about fabric and textiles, since I'm a very crafty person. Also knitting. Yeah. But other than that, I think sometimes I remember there was a Dragon Blood book where it what Cass was doing didn't really match what had been set up in previous books. So Lindsay ended up doing a major rewrite on that story. So sometimes we'll catch sort of series-wide issues. And I think when we do that, it helps the books blend better together into a cohesive story across the series.
True. We didn't mention your background in like all your craft things, but clothing, especially historical clothing and even modern clothing, let's face it.
Yes.
We're only like hiking pants and sweatshirts and t-shirts. So I don't even know like women's clothing. And what did I call it? I called it something that was actually a goat.
Oh, the chamois.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the camisole, the camisole.
That's what it was
That
supposed to
actually
be.
an animal.
All right, Rue, have you answered this one yet? Any feedback
No,
you felt was most helpful?
drug names. Every single drug in every single book has been me combining 3 to 5 other drugs in the same class into a new name. I feel like that's been my greatest contribution, except for the time that I think I had to help write Open Heart Surgery. Did I do that?
That would be Leonidas in the Fallen Empire
Yes,
series.
yes.
I know you had some
Yes.
help on that.
Plus, you made Casimir very authentically Jewish.
Yes,
I think
Jewish and
very
epileptic.
true.
I am both Jewish and epileptic, so I inserted a Zivrona Livraka in the first book because it belonged there, and that made it through to the end, which was great.
Yeah, I've actually got a lot of nice feedback from people that were like, wow, it's really cool to have a Jewish hero for sci-fi. And you must be Jewish.
For it.
They've asked me if I am. And I'm like, no,
Jews.
my beta reader is though, and she's helped me out.
Rue and I also made Princess Oku diabetic because Lindsay needed an autoimmune disorder that could be treated at the same clinic Casimir went to.
Right, because Bonita was getting knee surgery and getting stem cell stuff, and we were like, why would Oku be here?
Yeah, we had fun coming up with theoretical. It was based on real hopeful future islet cell and beta cell replacement therapy that we can hope will happen in the reality sooner than that far-flung future.
Okay, let's go on to the next question. We're making good progress here. I thought this would take 20 minutes, but obviously not. So next question is from Kirstie. What is your favorite thing about being a beta reader? Cindy, have you gone first for a while? Probably not.
I think probably part of an answer I already gave, but just being able to fix things before they get published. It's just, I don't know, it's satisfying to be able to fix something.
Excellent. Sarah?
All right. Well, I like using my college education like in an actual helpful way instead of just for trivia nights. But yeah, and I think Lindsay is wonderful to work with because she's receptive to criticism, or at least she hasn't let us know that she hates us and never wants to talk to us again, which is a constant worry for me because sometimes we're not really harsh, because I don't think we're ever mean, but sometimes we are very thorough in what we criticize.
Well, and I feel bad because I chat with you guys all the time and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm like ranting, and they probably feel like I'm ranting because of the feedback you gave me. And I am, because I'm frustrated, like, how am I going to fix this? But it's like, I don't not appreciate the feedback. Sometimes it takes me like a day or two to figure out how I'm going to solve something without I'm at that point, I usually don't have time to like write the whole book from scratch or an interest in doing that. So I can be a little bit ranty. So I'm glad that you guys don't feel that I rant at you. I'm really just like trying to figure stuff out with myself. That's the problem with being on Twitter DM chat, you know, is like, that's like, where do you go to rant? Oh, I'll just rant to Sarah, Cindy, and Rue. They're right here.
There's
But
been only really a handful of times where you've had to do a major rewrite, though. I mean, I can think of a few off the top of my head, but most of the time, I mean, you're a pro at this point. You've got it pretty nailed down. And the times where you have had to rewrite it significantly, you've already known ahead of time that there was something not quite right. And then we just helped you figure out what it was exactly. But I don't think we usually ambush you with major requests when you thought it was pretty solid to begin with. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Except for, I did that once. I did that once with one of the Chains of Honor books because the central science was implausible to impossible, and we just fixed it with magic. So I was expecting a major rewrite, but that didn't have to happen.
well, and that's sort of the fun too, is figuring a way to solve the problem, and hopefully in such a way that you don't have to do a major rewrite. I mean, sometimes if it's like a character needs some fixing all along the way, you have to, but sometimes if it's a logic thing, you don't have to. But yeah, I am always most pleased, of course, when the books actually come out pretty close to, like, I write the rough draft and it's pretty close to like pretty good, I think, you know, or at least, you know, a decent story and solid. That does not always happen though. Rue, what question are we on? What was your favorite thing about being a beta reader? We already did that, right? Or no?
I didn't actually answer that one though.
All right,
Everyone
please
else answered that one. I didn't. I just inserted my memory of a story because when I'm nervous, I chatter all the time. No, I think I agree with Cindy though. I like being able to kind of be in there at the beginning with, even when at first, there have been a couple times that you've mentioned things about new series in a social context, and I haven't gotten that much information. And a while back, I've thought, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be as into this one. I have stopped thinking that because it's never true. I'm always wrong. I always love each series as much as the previous one, and I like being there at the beginning and kind of helping shape the story in our little contributions, and also being able to see all the different forms that the narrative takes before it's in its final shape. And as a lowly public servant, I also do admit I appreciate getting a free book about every month or so.
Well, that's a perk.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Bob asks, what is the one thing you wish an author would do before submitting a manuscript for beta review? So I guess this would be advice for authors out there who are about to start working with beta readers. And do you find being a beta reader dulls the anticipation for new books? Go ahead, Rue, since we've got you.
First of all, no, I would say it's more that it moves the anticipation for new books. I'm excited about first getting our versions, and then when it comes out, I just want to see how other people take it. Did the book stick the landing? So I tend to just have a different kind of anticipation. But for a new author or someone who's working with a new beta reader, I definitely think that, as we mentioned before, the best thing to do is establish what you're looking for off the bat. Have some kind of, you know, are you planning to have conversations? Do you just want a single letter? Do you want word comments? Do you want an essay? Do you want a lot of line edits? What are you looking for to start with to make sure that you're a good fit for whoever you might be working with, and make sure that everybody knows what metaphorical and literal page you're supposed to be on?
No, that's a good idea. And that's kind of why I like knowing somebody first, or having, like you said, doing the typo hunting first, because sometimes you get people that want to just like rewrite your whole story, and you're like, you need to write your own book. This is my book, and I'm not looking for that exactly. Sarah, what is the one thing you wish an author would do? You actually get manuscripts from other authors, so before they submit a manuscript for beta review.
So I have an entire section on my website where I outline my expectations and what I'm going to do to the manuscript when I get it for beta reading. But so my one wish is that they would put it in the formatting that I request. So 1.5 spacing, Times New Roman 12 point, that just format the manuscript so I can read it without eye strain. And I guess that's it.
Which I don't do.
You don't.
But you
I
take
have
a
to do it myself.
select all and press a button.
Yeah, I fix it. Yours are close enough for me too. I just have to change one thing. So
All
that
right,
if anyone ever sees Lindsay complaining about something being at 210% zoom, that's always because of me. I send everything back that way.
I write in Scrivener, so I'll have to remember your word formatting preferences before I send it and try to remember. I
also add page numbers at the bottom center so I can refer to them in my notes.
Okay, good to know. Cindy?
I don't have much to add to that. I mean, what you send us is kind of has a certain level of polish to it already, just because of, where you are, I think, in your career and progress as a writer. You've done enough of the work to where your stories are pretty solid and you've already gone over them at least once. So what you end up sending to us isn't really very rough most of the time. So I don't know. I think just in addition to what the other said, just making sure that you've already gone over it enough that it's got a certain level of polish to it before you dump it on somebody else that's, at the beta reading level, where if you need more than that, then maybe the developmental editor is more what you need.
Yeah, it's tough when authors, and it's so easy now with self-publishing just to put your first book up there, but it's like, yeah, you probably need to take some writing classes or workshopping, get yourself a style guide, learn how to use a semicolon, some of the basic things that we don't always get in school, especially here in the US. Our education can be lacking with a
Yeah, like the workshop, or sometimes maybe what you need isn't actually a beta reader yet. Sometimes it's a workshop or a developmental editor or something like that.
All right, Cindy, I'll stick with you for the next questions from Jill. Do you want more Death Before Dragons? Because the fans do.
Well, I don't know. That story, I know you were thinking about maybe writing a short story. So I mean, a short story or something, checking in on it or whatever. But I don't know. I'm kind of once the story arc is completed, I'm on to the next new thing, and I'm excited about the fantasy series that you're writing. So what I really want is the next one in your fantasy series that you're currently writing right now.
Oh, good, since I'm working on that.
Yes.
But yeah, that's kind of like they had the wedding in the last one. So I might do like a honeymoon novella or bonus thing. But yeah, you do feel everything's kind of wrapped up. You're like, well, where would I take it next?
Yeah.
But
I'm glad that everybody seems to like that series, and I enjoyed it as well. But there's a next new thing coming out, and so that's what I'm more interested in.
All right, thank you. Sarah, more Death Before Dragons or no?
Well, I would love more Death Before Dragons, but Lindsay has been teasing us with ideas for a new heroine and hero. And I'm excited for that story that Lindsay has been telling us about. So yes to that, but I think Zav and, oh my goodness, what is the heroine's name?
Val.
I
still remember this.
Okay, good. I'm glad you remember.
Don't ask me about something older.
Okay, I feel like Zav and Val's story is done because they're married, and that fulfills the romance arc. And once you get past like that sort of traditional romance story, you start to get into like the domestic arrangements, and that's not as exciting to write about because it's about like socks and laundry. That's boring.
It was a fun challenge doing the Dragon Blood series because I never planned for that to be a series, as some may know. And I wrote the complete romance in book 1 between Ridge and Sardell. And then there were like 8 more books. So even though they weren't married in book 1, it was a pretty complete romance. Who has an answer?
I like established relationship stories. Actually, I prefer to have the characters get together in the first book and then we get to see adventures of people in an established relationship, because I'm not as big on the will they won't they as my colleagues are, but I do still enjoy it. And I agree with Sarah that I think while I also really like the series, I would rather see Val and Zav as secondary characters in a different story in the same setting. But I'm also very excited about the new series because we kind of got left on a cliffhanger. And there's a thing that was supposed to happen in the first book that didn't happen. So looking forward to seeing that happen.
All right. We're being nicely vague, although these will be out soon so people can read the new series, Dragon Gate. And yes, there will also be, I am seriously contemplating a spin-off series for Death Before Dragons with a new heroine and bringing back the assassin character from the last couple of books. All right, Jesse asks, why aren't you constantly suggesting a Shulina Arya standalone? It seems like a massive oversight. Go ahead, Rue.
Does this person know us? Because like we were for a while. I feel like we brought it up pretty frequently while Heritage of Power was being written like at least once a week.
I haven't done her yet. I may go back and do her someday. I'm just not sure who I'd hook her up with. I mean, as a dragon, you got to find just the right guy. Cindy?
Yeah, I was satisfied with her as a side character, as an amusing side character. I did enjoy her. She was kind of a scene stealer, but I was not the one advocating for a book of her own.
All right, Sarah?
Well, I would enjoy romance teen and she needs to mature a little bit more before she's ready for a big romance. And since she's a dragon, that could be a couple more 100 years. So that could be in the far future in that world setting.
Right, they'd have to have a date where they go to the mall right now since she's pretty young. All right.
Yeah, it was definitely a like way down the line kind of idea.
A couple more questions from Ken asks, and I do this occasionally, but not because I don't know them. I have other words I'm much more likely to screw up, but Ken asks, how often does Lindsay use the wrong form of two, or two? Sarah,
I think you've got that one down.
It's effect and affect, which I was in, it's any
Yes.
word that I didn't learn in my youth. Like I didn't know affect with an A was even a word probably till I started writing seriously. And it's like harder to imprint it in the brain. I don't know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks or something, and I find myself reverting to like old knowledge because when I write, I'm very much playing it like a movie in my head and I'm not thinking about the words. So it's a very subconscious thing, but go ahead.
Okay, so Lindsay rarely screws that one up. But I also want to say to anyone who writes or who is thinking about writing, spelling isn't correlated with intelligence, and really smart, really creative people can't spell well. So if you make spelling mistakes or little errors like that, don't get stressed out about it. It's perfectly fine. Just fix it in editing, move on, find your joy. Don't get hung up on it. It's okay to make mistakes. It's fine.
Yeah, you guys should see my dad's spelling, and he's got a PhD in a science field. So, Rue, did you want to chime in?
Yep. Oh, just about how I have advanced degrees in medical sciences and I can't spell. I can spell medical words and I can spell drug names, but affect and effect, no.
That's a tough one. I say it's a tough one. All right, Amy asks, what's the funniest typo or writing error you have found? Is it the shoulders that are the soldiers that want to become shoulders, or something better? Cindy, I know you've got a list. Why don't you start us off?
I live for the typos, I really do. And I sometimes will share them with Lindsay in the Twitter chat as I read along. Sometimes they make it into her Twitter feed, but yeah, I get a lot of mileage out of some of the typos, or sometimes almost fall off the elliptical machine. But yeah, I did write down a few that I can read off for your amusement. We have, yes, Ort hits a soldier from Balanced on the Blade's Edge, and that was, yeah, shoulder soldier. That one has come up a few times. And let's see. Oh, Kaika has a tattoo of the first grenade ever invited. Found that one too, or I'm not sure what the grenade was invited to, but must be an interesting tattoo. And we have a thud sounded followed by a yell of paint. I believe that one I included a picture of the Scream painting in my comment for that one. Let's see. They looked towards the water in time to see 4 rowboats laughing from the warehouse barge. So I'm not sure what they were laughing about. What was so funny? Let's see. Oh, you've swapped the words lavatory and laboratory. And I'm never quite sure what you mean because it could be a P joke, but maybe you meant laboratory. So I'm never confident enough to actually make that replacement for you. I have to see what you meant there. Let's see. And all of the helmet incidents, always, I get some mileage out of that, where even you fix it now, but I can just imagine you writing along. Like here's one where if she hadn't had her helmet on, she might have nibbled on a fingernail. And I read those and I think, no, that's not how you wrote it the first time. You wrote, she nibbled a fingernail, and then you caught yourself and you imagined me laughing at you. And then you changed it in backspace, backspace, backspace. If she hadn't had her helmet on, she would have nibbled on a fingernail. So
that
I think we
true yes, fact.
Yes. So it's kind of a little, I think, a little Easter egg. For me, at least that's how I read it.
All right, that's very much very likely. And I just found one that we'd all read, and there was debris on the floor of the space station with no gravity. I caught on the second edit. I was like, gravity. If only I had like an anti-gravity chamber in my house, so I had a better frame of reference. I could just go hang out in there and write.
We have missed things like that before, like the where the pirate captain changed names in the middle of the book, and all of us missed it. And your editor caught it, where it was Captain Scourge and then suddenly it was Captain Slaughter. And it was kind of our big epic fail. So we catch those now more because we're looking for them. But I remember that got by all of us. And
it is amazing how many eyes it takes reading. I mean, when you think about a manuscript, it's like 100,000 words. So there is a lot there, but how many people really need to go over something to catch everything? And we still don't catch. There's still always a couple typos in there.
Yeah. And things like where you swap people in a scene and suddenly it's the other person. Like in I think it was one of the Dragon Blood books where they had people in the little 2-seater airplanes and the person in the back seat switched multiple times while they were in midair.
That was going to be I was going to say that the time that the person in the back seat of the flyer changed who they were multiple times, and times that characters have been talking to or shaking hands with or kissing themselves because of the wrong name being in the wrong place on the line is probably the thing that the epic typos that no one's commented on yet. The shoulders is also a big one because it's happened in multiple series that soldiers have become shoulders and vice versa.
Yeah, my brain, that word. Just recently, Rock, can't even say my own character's name, was commenting on his own sexiness. It was supposed to be Yas, but you guys all caught that. You must love the ones where I just forget to end the sentence and it's like Mad Libs and you have to put something in there or there's a missing word.
Cindy loves those in particular.
Yes. We get to be creative there. Sarah and I come up with a list of options, or we have occasionally just inserted a word into the Word document and just to see if Lindsay will notice that we finished the sentence for her.
See if I accept the change.
I inserted myself into the story once, I seem to remember, but that was a few books ago. Lindsay did not accept that change. I did not appear in the story. How disappointing.
That's a bummer. Rue or Sarah, do you have any others to add that you haven't added?
Well, for me, it was Ankari's Shammy, because she and Victor were having a tender moment, and he was like, exploring under her chamois as they kissed. So it was Ankari, Victor, and a goat, which will never stop being funny to me. Why was the goat there?
Clothing, so difficult.
I feel like that gets brought up anytime underwear comes up. There's always a goat. We're always mentioning the goat in the conversation. So
I was trying to include the dog rolling around on her back, but she stopped.
You have a helper?
Yeah. All right. I think we're at the end. One more from Julia. And thank you to anyone who's been listening the whole time. This was more than 20 minutes, guys. From Julia, out of all the characters you've come across in Lindsay's universe, which would you most want to be friends with? Which, if you were not happily married and lived in the fantasy world and such things of interest to you, I kind of edited this, would you most like to have romantic times with, and which would you want nothing to do with? All right, who wants to go first for this last question? Sarah will go because you weren't fast enough.
So I was actually thinking about this last night. I think Sardell and Booksy and I would be best friends and we get along together really well because we all love history. I think Booksy and I could argue about things and it'd be great. And Sardell and I could just be friends. What was the next part?
Who would you like to have a romantic relationship with, assuming you were not already involved and interested in such things?
Goodness. Okay. Well, since I just proofed the audiobook for Warrior Mage, I'm going to say Dak. He's crusty but appealing. All right.
It is a little hard because I already hooked up all these characters with people.
No,
so you have to like
right?
boot out their significant other to take the spot.
I feel adulterous. And that's not my speed, guys.
And the last was, which character would you want nothing to do with?
So Lindsay has a new book which we have beta read, but it has not been published yet. And there is a character called Donovan in it who is repugnant, and I want to use foul language, but I don't want Lindsay to have to demonetize this video. So he's a very bad man. I don't like him. I'd like to kick him. Donovan, jerk.
Yeah, this video is I'm gonna be rolling in the big dollars after a beta reader chat that 17 people watch.
Maybe you can buy yourself half a margarita.
These are pricey. Maybe half a Diet Coke. Okay. All right. He is a villain, just to be clear, so it's okay if you hate him. Rue, would you like, or Cindy? Cindy unmuted herself. She's eager to chime in.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was just thinking that I was going to put all the villains off limits because they're obviously villains and I don't want to hang out with villains. So there was one of your heroes of one of your Ruby books that I did not like at all. Like I did not, I know, but you don't write cookie cutter characters. And so they're all different. And so I think it's natural that some would resonate with you more than others. And so there was one in particular that I didn't like at all, didn't find attractive in any way. I thought he was a jerk. And I don't remember his name, but that's just as well. So
now you've got me guessing. It wasn't Thacker, was it?
Oh no, it was
one of the captains.
It was the one, he was like the captain and his brother was the hero of one of the other books. And he was such a jerk to his brother and he was a very...
Sajida.
You mean the one that Sarah and I...
Yes.
Sarah and I loved him,
that's
and you couldn't
my favorite book.
Yeah,
yes, Sarah liked him a lot and I did not. And that's fine.
I also really, that was my favorite, though not largely because the couple tropes I were hit on big time in that book. But
yeah, I'm not sure I would actually want to spend time with Sajida because he's kind of
stuffy,
pompous, and arrogant.
Yes.
But I found the story satisfying.
It is funny if you hit somebody's like not pain point, what's the word I want to say, somebody's like they've got their list of things they hate And I don't know if that was the case with this one, Cindy, but I know I felt that as a reader. If the character
Yeah.
does one thing, like I cannot stand when the hero, the romantic lead, if he starts out as a jerk, a complete jerk to the heroine, I hate that trope. Even though I know he's going to be redeemed in the end, like once you are a super jerk, I don't like you as a reader. That's why
It
so
was
much,
something like that.
yeah, so much romance does it. That's why I'm so careful, even with my assassins who are work for the bad guys. Usually they're not a jerk to the heroine, not super jerk. But go ahead.
For the other two parts of the question, I would say I think Kaika would be really fun to hang out with. She seems like she'd be a good time. Go out to the bar or hang out. She seemed like a fun person. And then like of your romantic or hero characters, kind of partial to Rias from Encrypted and Decrypted and the Emperor's Edge books. I like the military, the Navy man. I know my husband's in the Navy, so maybe that's part of it, but he was always my favorite. Ridge would maybe a second choice, but he's a little more of a daredevil than I think I'd want in a partner. But yeah, I always liked Rias.
All right, well, thank you. I actually have no idea how you guys are answering these, so it's like news to me too. All right, Rue. So out of all the characters, which would you most want to be friends with?
This is not going to surprise anyone. Kim. I would have a great silent, occasional mumbling about lab equipment friendship with Kim, in which we silently and introvertedly supported each other.
I can see you guys having good time working together and talking twice the whole day at the lab.
And if somebody found something cool, we would have an enthusiastic conversation that no one else would be able to follow, and then probably fist bump on the way out. It would be great.
Actual fist bump or virtual fist bump? How are you on the touching?
Like an actual fist bump with gloves on. I like touching about as much as she does, but if you're wearing a glove, it's okay. In terms of people I wouldn't want to spend time with, I would be scared of Victor Mandrake, so I wouldn't want to go near him because he would frighten me too much. I'm very short and easily intimidated, so that guy would creep me out. I enjoyed reading about him, but I don't think I would want to hang out with him. And if I had to date someone, it would probably be Sardell.
She got brought up a couple of times.
Sarah, as a friend, though, I would pick her as a girlfriend.
All right. Well, she's pretty chill. She's not super, personality-wise, she's pretty.
It makes sense that I would want to hang out. Oh, sorry, Rue. I talked over you.
Were you going to say that it would make sense? Because my actual spouse is like really similar to you also? Yeah, is that where this is going? Because, yes.
It would make sense that I would want to hang out with Rue's significant other, whoever that may be, fictional or non-fictional.
We'll all be on the cruise together once COVID times are over.
Well, we've never invited my husband before, but he and Sarah did get along really well. They have a lot in common, so.
All right, cool. Well, I think that is all the questions. Finally, thank you, everybody.
Lindsay, wait. I want you to answer that last question.
All of it?
Well, pick to your comfort level.
Oh God, I didn't think about this ahead of time. All right, who would I most want to be friends with? Man, I think I'd pick Casimir from Star Kingdom because he's completely opposite of me. And sometimes it's nice to have like that outgoing extrovert so you don't have to do the talking when you're together or out with other people. And I always enjoy hanging out with geeky, smart people. Who would I want romantically? Gosh, I don't even know. Like they're all like, especially any of the ones that are, well, maybe not Casimir. He's not really a dreamy boy, despite wanting to be best friends with him. But anybody I did like 8 books with, I would be like, yeah, that was the romantic lead. Sicarius is kind of scary. For the same reason, Victor and Sajida were the Ruby Lion Trait books, in case anybody was lost on those one. So I don't know. I might actually pick Ridge for the same reason as Casimir. He's an extrovert, and you kind of need somebody who's not exactly like you. Plus, he's super hot. All the girls in Escandia love him. Although that's why none of my characters would pick me. So it's really just, you know, that's how it is. Which would you want nothing to do with? Probably Theric from Dragonblood series, even though he got less jerky as the series went on and he even got his own novel. He didn't like Ridge, and Ridge was my boy. So, all right. Anything else for me? Or do you guys want to plug? Sarah is an editor and available for hire if anybody is looking for work.
Yes. So I actually have openings in like June now. Wait, maybe July. Let me think about my schedule. I'm kind of busy, but I offer a wide range of editing services, and my website is engelkeyediting.com, and I'll let Lindsay maybe put a link to that in the YouTube video description. I think that'll be easier than me spelling it. But I love to help people with their books. I think I can help anybody who needs help. And I also have a list of recommended writing books if anybody is interested in those.
Yes, I will put the link in the show notes, or I guess we don't have show notes on YouTube. The description, if anybody needs an editor. Cindy or Rue, you're not editing, but is there anything you'd like to plug?
I'm trying to hire someone though. If by any chance you are a bilingual English-Spanish speaking social worker and you are anywhere in the United States, please, if you need a job, I really, really need to hire you.
As of, we should say March 2021.
Yes. But honestly,
in 2 years.
Honestly, always bilingual English Spanish speaking social workers willing to work for city clinics. We're always desperate for those. We're especially desperate right now, but if on the off chance one is watching this, please get in touch. We really need you.
All right, Cindy, do you need to hire anybody?
I don't need anything at all, and I don't hire myself out for anything else, so nothing.
Not even now that you have an LLC and you're like a consultant?
You know what? If you need a database designed and built, then maybe.
Who doesn't? All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for spending all this time with me. This was much longer than I envisioned. And thank you, anybody if you actually listen to the end, let us know. If you could give us a thumbs up on YouTube, leave a comment, we'd appreciate it. And I'm going to hit stop now.